What happened?
Donald Trump injured in an attempted assassination at a Pennsylvania rally. The suspected shooter killed at the scene. Locally, taxi fares go up. And many public swimming pools partially closed down due to a shortage of lifeguards. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Donald Trump's campaign says he is fine after an assassination attempt during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The suspected shooter is a 20-year-old man who authorities say was killed at the scene. A spectator was also killed and 2 others critically injured. Trump later posted on social media that a bullet pierced the upper part of his right ear. U.S. President Joe Biden said he has spoken to his Republican rival and condemned the shooting, calling it sick. Nasri Kareem with more.
And you know, that's a little bit.
One moment he was telling the crowd about the U.S. border.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Seconds later, Donald Trump was shot. Gunfire is heard. The former president touches his ear, looks at his hand, and then drops to the floor. Immediately covered by Secret Service agents. Chaos ensues. Before he is whisked away, Trump punches the air in triumph, a gesture that may dramatically change the landscape of this year's presidential race. Another fist in the air before being bundled into a vehicle. Associated Press photographs later showing Trump with the bloodied right ear as he is taken away from the scene. Authorities identified the shooter as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, a registered Republican voter who also had donated money to a progressive organization in January 2020. He was killed by Secret Service agents.
So we're standing there, you know, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on.
The incident drew immediate condemnation from Republicans and Democrats, with Trump's rival, President Joe Biden, cutting short a break in Delaware and heading straight to the White House.
Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it.
Questions are being asked of Trump's security detail, which is lifetime as a former president. The Secret Service is also surprised that the shooter was able to make multiple shots, at least 5.
Right now, we need the public's help. Anyone who was on scene, who saw anything, who identified any information, please report that to the FBI using either the phone number 1-800-CALL-FBI or online.
Shortly after the incident, Trump posted a message on his Truth Social platform offering condolences to the other victims, saying he was shot by a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. Trump, having left hospital, was later reportedly seen disembarking a plane at Newark Airport on his way to spending the night at his Bedminster private golf club in New Jersey. Nasri Kareem, TVB News.
World leaders have condemned the attack on Donald Trump and wished the former president a speedy recovery. Nasri Kareem again.
President Xi Jinping has expressed his sympathies to Trump, a foreign ministry spokesperson said in a statement on Sunday. The spokesperson said China is following the shooting incident at the campaign rally of former U.S. President Donald Trump. President Xi Jinping has expressed sympathies to former President Trump. Britain's new Prime Minister Keir Starmer posted on social media saying, "I'm appalled by the shocking scenes at President Trump's rally, and we send him and his family our best wishes. Political violence in any form has no place in our societies." French President Emmanuel Macron said his thoughts are with Trump and the spectator who died, adding, "It's a tragedy for our democracies. France shares the shock and indignation of the American people." Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida wrote, "We must stand firm against any form of violence that challenges democracy. I pray for former President Trump's speedy recovery." Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese spoke to the media in Canberra.
Along with all Australians, I was shocked by the terrible scenes at former President Trump's campaign event in Pennsylvania. I'm relieved by the news that the former president is safe and doing fine, and I wish him and his family well. I'm also saddened by reports that a member of the audience has lost their life and other attendees have been injured, and I send my condolences on behalf of Australia to their loved ones in this time of grief.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Taxi fare hikes took effect today. The flag fall charge is $2 higher than before. That means the initial charge for urban taxi rides now costs $29. This marks the second taxi fare hike in the city in around 2 years. For urban taxis, the flag fall charge for the first 2 kilometers has increased to $29. Passengers have to pay 20 cents more per meter jump in the first tier distance between the 2nd and the 9th kilometers as well. That means the incremental charges for urban cabs have gone up to $2.10. Second tier distance charges are at $1.40 per meter jump. The new flag fall charge for taxis in the new territories is $25.50. The first-tier incremental charges have gone up to $1.90. On Lantau Island, the flag fall charge is at $24. The first-tier distance incremental charges between the 2nd and 20th kilometers are at $1.90. Some local residents said they will take fewer taxi rides given the fare hike. This citizen meanwhile said people will get used to the fare change eventually. This woman said she's worried about the taxi fare hike's knock-on effect on the overall cost of living. This taxi driver meanwhile said fewer people take the cab after the fare hike. He used to earn at least $400 by this time of the day. Now he only earned $280. This cabbie meanwhile said given the current inflation rate, the fare increase won't impact taxi ridership that much, as it's just a few dollars difference. The Transport and Logistics Bureau said the government has considered citizens' level of acceptance and the change in the operating costs of the taxi trade before approving the fare hikes. The government is set to introduce the taxi fleet service with a maximum of 5 license applications approved within this month. The goal is to put the fleet into service by the end of the year. Secretary for Transport and Logistics Lam Sai-hung said among the 15 tenders they have received, there are applicants from different trades, not just those from the taxi industry. He also hopes that will help boost the quality of the point-to-point transport service in Hong Kong. On whether ride-hailing platforms will be regulated, Lam said what matters most is the public interest and the maintenance of an efficient public transport system. The impact on taxi license costs won't be a consideration. More than half of the city's public swimming pools have to partially close down temporarily due to a shortage of lifeguards. A lifeguard union hopes the government will extend the working hours of lifeguards over the summer holidays to resolve the manpower issue. Taking a dip in the pool might be a great way to stave off the summer heat, but fewer swimming facilities are open these days. They include this public swimming pool in Ho Man Tin, which was forced to close in the morning because of a lack of lifeguards. This woman hopes there were prior announcements so people wouldn't have to travel all the way here only to see the pool closed. This woman said she now has to take her child to another pool to take the swimming class. At about 3 p.m., the Ho Man Tin swimming pool was reopened. According to the Leisure and Cultural Services Department, or LCSD, more than half of the city's 45 public swimming pools had to temporarily shutter some facilities because there were not enough lifeguards on duty. Anson Tang, president of the Hong Kong Government Lifeguards General Union, said most pools can only open when there are at least 4 lifeguards to undertake rescue work when the need arises. The union said the problem of manpower shortage at public swimming pools has existed for a long time and is worsened by the competition for manpower at private pools. The LCSD earlier issued a tender to outsource lifeguard services at 6 public swimming pools over a 2-year period starting August 1st. But the union said the outsourced service will commence only in September, missing the peak swimming season over the summer holidays. The union said it has made suggestions to the government that the working hours of lifeguards be extended during the summer holidays to address the manpower shortage problem. Under the government's restructuring of the Social Workers Registration Board, social workers who have previously committed national security offences will have their licenses revoked. Secretary for Labour and Welfare Chris Sun stressed the measure was implemented in view of social workers' influence over society. He added authorities will make manpower adjustments to tackle the rising number of child abuse reports. Timothy Lee has more.
With reports of child abuse on the rise in Hong Kong, lawmakers recently passed the Mandatory Report of Child Abuse Bill to tackle the issue. Speaking on a TVB news program, Secretary for Labour and Welfare Chris Sun said the government will increase both its manpower and residential childcare services to deal with the problem. Sun emphasized the extent of the measure's reach across multiple professions.
So with the passage of this ordinance, we are now ready and to launch a comprehensive reporting scheme covering 25 professionals, totaling more than 100,000 people. For those covered by the ordinance, they have to make a report by law. So if they don't make a mandatory reporting, they will going to face a legal consequence.
Regarding the proposed legislation on the failure to protect children offense, which suggested increasing the maximum penalty for child abuse to more than 10 years imprisonment, the Labour and Welfare chief said considerations will only be made after 1.5 years after the implementation of the mandatory report scheme. Meanwhile, on the revocation of relevant licenses of social workers who committed national security offenses, Sun stressed the policy will not dissuade newcomers from joining the sector. He reiterated the need to increase the sector's professionalism.
If you look at the appointment to the board, right now we are appointing renowned professor in social welfare as well as leading figures in the trade. So we need all these what we call heavyweights to be on board so that they can provide their insight and advice. It's highly unlikely that social workers they will be charged and convicted of crimes involving national security. But if there is any who has been so convicted, I think it's just right for us to make it very clear in the law that
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And still ahead, and a visit to a 2 centuries-old guild hall in Beijing. The observatory said a tropical depression over the South China Sea is gradually moving towards central Vietnam and that it does not pose a significant threat to Hong Kong. While the authorities forecast the tropical depression will continue to maintain a distance of 800 kilometers from the city. The observatory noted the city and the rest of the Guangdong coast will experience stronger winds and more showers in the next 2 days. The ancient guild halls in Beijing were once known as stations, Beijing offices or city halls, set up by fellow natives from different provinces. One of them has a 200-year-old theater stage, and it aims to become a Chinese opera hub attracting young audiences. Sakura Ip went there to take a look.
A classic opera, The Romance of the Western Chamber, is performed on the nearly 200-year-old stage of the Huguang Guild Hall. Following in Peking opera artist Mei Lanfang's footsteps, actress Wang Jin says the historic theater's ambience creates a sense of connection to the ancient world when the story is unfolded.
It's definitely a first-person perspective, and it's very interesting. Definitely a flashback, I guess, back to the past.
The wooden structure has been there for nearly 2 centuries. Its architectural design demonstrates a merging of features from the north and south of the country.
The 2-layer rooftop is one of the architecture style in the south. The extra layer works as a rain diverter as well as heat resistant. In summer, the room temperature will be cooler. In winter, it traps the heat so the room temperature will be warmer.
The Huguang Guild Hall was founded in 1807 by 2 people from Hubei and Hunan during the Qing dynasty. Wang Xuewei, director of the Guild Hall, explains that the hall acted like the Beijing office back then, serving fellow countrymen from the 2 provinces, including merchants and scholars. The hall also hosted events such as weddings, funerals, and festivals. The revolutionary icon Sun Yat-sen visited the place 5 times. The Huguang Guildhall was designated as a nationally protected cultural heritage site in 2019. It has now reopened to the public after a 2-year pandemic-induced closure for renovation work. Zachariah, TVB News, Beijing.
Your best in news. Thank you for watching.